How much patience can one conservative man have on CNN? It's the NewsBusters podcast. I'm Tim Graham, executive editor, and with me today, MRC President David Bozell.
Hey, everybody.
And our special guest, as you can already guess, Scott Jennings, our Bulldog Award winner for outstanding achievement behind enemy lines. And he has a new book he's selling, A Revolution of Common Sense, How Donald Trump Stormed Washington and Fought for Western Civilization. Welcome, Scott.
Glad to be with you guys today. Thank you very much.
I'm going to be unusual and start by asking about the book. I know that's not normally the way it works. But when you write a book like this with the access you were granted to the president, you know, you have to have something in this book for your holiday shoppers that they're not going to get elsewhere. Can you give us a little bit of that?
Well, I had some interesting interactions with the president, and some of them took place in the Oval Office, and some of them took place on Air Force One, and some of them took place just in our communication over the time I was writing the book. Honestly, I didn't really know him until February. I mean, he sort of dominated my, professional and personal conversations for a decade. I think that's true for all of us, but I didn't really know him. And so when I went into the Oval Office in February of this year, it was really the first time I had interacted with him in a significant way over a long space of time. And so one of the things I was doing was, getting to know Donald Trump, the person, not the caricature that you get in the media. And so if I had to tell you one thing that I learned and that you should know, it's that the way they portray him is not at all the way he is behind the scenes. He's warm. He's funny. He's like Rodney Dangerfield and Don Rickles and Dave Chappelle had a baby. I mean, he's a funny guy. He's a towel snapper, but he's extremely hospitable. And I watched him just constantly soliciting people. Do you need something to drink? Would you like this? Would you like that? You can tell the man is from the hospitality business. And so that's not something that they really portray, when they cover Donald Trump. The other thing, and I think this is vital to know about him, he is an excellent listener. He listens. I watched him interact with his cabinet, interact with his staff, and have meetings about high-level important issues. And the man listens. He has these debates going on in front of him. He lobs in his own questions. But the guy's constantly listening and sort of taking in information. He is decisive. When he makes a decision, everybody salutes and executes. But he really does enjoy kind of absorbing a back and forth over issues. So I guess one of the things about the book that you'll get from it is, and I experienced this when I worked for President George W. Bush. The caricature of the media of our Republicans is never what you get if you actually hang out with them behind the scenes. And that's what they do to Republicans. They did it to Mitt Romney. They did it to Bush. They did it to Cheney. They're doing it to Trump. So one of the values in writing the book for me was getting to know Trump, the person, and I actually quite like him.
Scott, you mentioned working for President Bush. You've worked for Senator McConnell, and you've spent a lot of time with President Trump for this book. What is it about President Trump's approach to the media that other Republicans just haven't been able to pick up on and perform as aggressively as he does? I was in one of these conservative conspiracy meetings not so long ago. I'm sure you've been in a ton of these, where I listened to a United States senator suggest that he wasn't going to go after the Arctic frost issue because the media wouldn't cover it. And I just, my chin sinks to my chest. It's like, can you imagine President Trump ever suggesting such a thing? And the answer to that would be no. So I guess the question is, you've worked for a cadre of Republicans. What can we do to convince them that the media is out to get them, and you've got to push through them in order to get their agenda across the finish line?
Yeah, it's a really great question. And I think this is maybe the top thing Republicans love the most about Trump, is that since he came along, his theory is, if they throw a pebble at me, I'm going to throw a boulder back at them.
Yeah.
And that definitely applies to the media.
Yeah.
And I can't take credit for that phrasing, by the way. Mitch McConnell used to say that all the time, and it stuck with me all these years. But when it comes to the media, that is Trump's theory, and Republicans love it. And I think I've been in this for 25 years.
I think voters love it. I don't know about the Republican elected class. sometimes.
Well, look, they ought to love it because
Yeah.
it's effective.
Yeah.
And their people, our people, conservatives, want them to fight back. I think, another thing about Trump that I learned, and tactically, as they were putting together the early days of this administration, when you're a Republican president, you face three things: Democrats who want to destroy you, an entrenched federal bureaucracy that wants to destroy you, and the media that desperately wants to destroy you.
Yeah.
And they collude and they work together to do these things. And so you can play it one of two ways. You can let them overwhelm you, which has happened, or you can overwhelm them. And that's what Trump decided to do. He said, I'm going to overwhelm them. I will not be overwhelmed myself. Part of that is pushing back aggressively on the press. Now, at the same time, the people who carp on Trump for pressing on the media and pushing back on them, he gives them unprecedented access. I mean, he's the most transparent president. He lets them into the Oval Office every day. He answers their questions for hours and hours and hours every day, every week, far more than Biden ever did. And so with the access, though, they have to accept the jostling, and they have to accept that he's not going to take all their narratives lying down. And I guess that's the final point I would make is, if I were advising a Republican about this, what they are trying to do is create narratives about situations that may or most often may not have anything to do with the facts. They want there to be narratives, and they do this to Trump all the time. Russia stole the election. That was narrative number one. And now there's an entire political party that takes it as an article of faith that an election was stolen by Russia. The current narrative is, well, Trump had something to do with the Epstein situation. There's not a shred of evidence that he did, but you now have an entire political party and a media establishment that is dedicated to pushing this narrative. And so if Trump doesn't fight them, if he doesn't push back on them, you just have to live with the narratives.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's maddening to a Republican grassroots person. Like, that's not true. We know that's not true. Why do we have to live with their narratives? And Trump simply refuses to live with it. Now, he has an advantage, which is he's a showman, and he's got that showmanship quality. Mm-hmm. But he and his press team, and I learned this writing the book as well, I think, my opinion is, he and his team, Stephen Chung, Caroline Levitt, the comms people, I think they're running circles around the media, and they're running circles around the Democratic communications counterparts when it comes to this. So, my advice is push back. If you don't push back, no one's coming to save you. Right. You're the only one who can save yourself. And I think Trump has taught us all that.
Right.
Well, I think that the only part I won't accept of the pebbles analogy is the reporters aren't throwing pebbles. I mean, the thing that they got very upset the other day when the president called somebody piggy, or the president suggested Mary Bruce of ABC was a terrible person from a fake news network, which I think is pretty common in the Trump oeuvre of insults.
Pretty normal affair.
Yeah, but they don't acknowledge you call him a fascist, a Nazi, a pedophile, liable for rape, the end of democracy. I mean, how is piggy worse than that?
Right.
Well, when it comes to ABC News, I mean, they put one of the most well-known Democratic political operatives of the modern era and masquerade him as a journalist.
And badly masquerade, but yes.
Scott,
we have to live with that every week. And so, look, I think what Trump has exposed about some media is that, let's just be honest about what we're all doing here, and they hate that, look, I believe in a free press. I believe in a trusted free press. Mm-hmm. But what happens to Donald Trump on a daily basis is often not that. What happens to him are people who hate him, who have narratives in mind, and who are trying to drive those narratives. And he's just never really been willing to accept that. And I think it's one of the things that will endear him to Republicans forever. No matter whatever happens, his showing a fighting spirit when it comes to the media. I'll tell you a story, guys. I've been in Republican politics for 25 years. Been to hundreds of Lincoln Day dinners, Republican dinners all over the country for years. And all those campaigns, the number one thing anyone ever walked up to me and said was, what are we going to do about the media? They're killing us. Every day, every dinner, somebody, 10 people, 20 people, it's all anybody ever wanted to talk about. And Donald Trump comes along and says, I'll do something about it.
Right.
He scratched that itch, but he showed the party you don't have to take it lying down. And I don't know. I think that fighting spirit is what Republicans love about this guy.
Scott, talk about your process. because you are lapping the field with viral moments day in and day out. When you get up in the morning, what's the first thing you're checking? What are you skimming? Versus what are you studying? Do you know the panel? If it's a CNN day, do you know the panel way ahead of time? Are you prepping for the panel? Are you prepping for the topic?
Great question.
Give us a sense of your process, please.
Sure. Well, every day is different. And I often don't know if it's one of the nighttime shows, like the 10 o'clock show where you see me a lot. I usually don't get the topics until late in the day, late afternoon, early evening.
Okay.
And even then, a lot of things happen between 5 o'clock and 10 o'clock.
Sure,
and so
sure.
it can change. I generally get topics. Sometimes I know the panelists, sometimes I don't. But what I never know is how Abby is going to frame it. How her, she uses a script to sort of set up the segments. And so I never really see that. And I don't know.
You have no access to the questions.
No, I have no idea.
Yeah.
And I also don't know what clip she's going to play. I can guess, based on what I've seen throughout the day, but I don't know, what video I'm going to see and then be asked to react to that. So what you're seeing actually is quite remarkable. It is authentic, in the moment reactions to how a story is framed and whatever the newsmakers said in the clips that we play. I also have no idea what the panelists are going to say. I don't know, how they're going to react to things. I don't know anybody else's point of view before I get out there. So it truly is sort of an authentic reaction. But my process is I spend all day long consuming information, reading articles. I follow you guys. I've got a pretty good cultivated set of sources and outlets that I follow throughout the day. That it's kind of my breaking news algorithm. And you guys are a big part of it, honestly, because you all are so good at sort of picking out the clips that matter the most in terms of the news cycle.
We're gonna use that for our fundraising. So thank you very much for that.
By all means, I hope people hear it. It's true, but I'm just consuming a massive amount of content every day. I make a lot of phone calls. I make a lot of calls, and I send a lot of text messages to people who are involved in things. And sometimes the best question to ask is, "Can you just tell me what's really going on here?"
You're right.
And oftentimes I will learn things in those conversations that you'd never get, from the news coverage of it. And that makes me a better informed pundit. I do try to do a little research on what I think the vectors for the other side will be and try to make some predictions about that. But, really what you're seeing is just me trying to consume information, synthesize it throughout the day, and then do the best job I can reacting to things that, I'm hearing cold for the first time on the air. But it is just a massive amount of reading and paying attention. And having my radio show on Salem from 2 to 3 every day actually helps in this process, because I have to prepare for that show. And I usually prepare a news roundup or a monologue. I have to prepare for my interviews. So that also has been another layer of information prep that I think it actually does aid me as I prepare then for the rest of the night.
Do you have a panelist or panelists that you're going to make good TV with ahead of time? I mean, I think anytime Scott, Van, and Axe, any combination of us are on together, it's good TV. Yeah.
And I respect those guys. I travel with them a lot. We do a lot of things together. Van and I do public speaking together a lot. So we spend some time together, and I actually respect them both. I think they're both genuine people. I think they have different approaches to the commentary business, but typically if it's us on there, something good's going to happen.
Well, I suspect that's because you guys come off as the most prepared.
Well, they do prepare. I mean, Van shows up and Axe both show up extremely prepared, and they're fast. I mean, they're witty, they're fast. Van is, he's probably the most thoughtful liberal commentator that I know. And Axe, of course, just the decades of experience that he has. And he's also one of the funniest and sort of sharpest in the moment guys that we have. I mean, he will throw a punch and it will hurt. And so, but it makes for great television debating. And when you hear from those guys, what you're hearing are authentic, informed, experienced views. These aren't people who were handed, 3 bullet points by some hack over at the DNC and said, "Here, read this." These guys show up with their own informed, authentic views. And that is, I think it makes for really great television when we're debating the news of the day. We typically are on the big nights together. We were just on when Mamdani won, and we had some hilarious backs and forths, both before Mom Donnie spoke and then me making them eat crow after he spoke.
Right. So there's no chance that Abby's slipping Van the questions ahead of time and not slipping the questions to you ahead of time?
I don't believe that. No, I mean, I'm not in the middle of anybody else's tech exchange. I don't believe that. I think what we're doing out there is the most authentic show on cable. And by authentic, I mean, it's mostly unscripted. Abby does set up the segments. It is written, and she does have to prepare that. But for the conversation and for the debate, it's approaching the most authentic you can be. I think there's a few things you could do to take it a step further, but it's I think that's why it's succeeding, because I think there's a hunger for this kind of content, and I think it's good for CNN to give it to. I mean, I credit CNN. I can't believe there aren't more actual debating shows on television. The fact that we're willing to do it, to me, is Mark Thompson, our CEO, is the one that thought of it last year. We changed to this format during the election, and it was actually between the conventions. And I think they thought they were just going to use it for the campaign and then go back to the old way.
Yeah.
But everybody loved it so much, we've stuck with it, and it's become one of our most successful ventures.
Yeah. I mean, Tim, it's kind of like a modernized version of Crossfire.
A little bit. More debaters than on Crossfire, I guess.
Yeah.
But I think, Scott, the question that most people have for you, and I imagine you've gotten this more than once, is how do you keep your composure? There's obviously some guests that come on that show that you go, oh no, here comes Tiffany Cross or something. How do you stay calm? I mean, the other night somebody suggested you were racist for making a joke about an IQ test.
Yeah, I've come to expect the pot shots. I guess one thing about the show that has developed is there are now people who want to come on because they think it's somehow good for their brand or their career to come on and take personal pot shots at me. They're not there to debate the issues. They come on for the sole purpose of taking some, little pot shot at me. Little do they know, what they're about to say or whatever they've come up with. 100 people have already tried it, and it's not original or authentic in any way. But it makes them feel good to come on. So, and I guess I'm a career enhancer for people. But I just come to expect it. And honestly, what I have learned is when people come to take pot shots at me or hurl insults or, disparage my character. But by the way, it happens all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I just kind of have assumed, well, they know they have no chance of beating me at a debate about the topic or an issue. And so their best hope is to try to filibuster the segment with insults and disparagement.
Well, I think one of the things that a lot of people enjoy, you can see this on social media, is just the Scott Jennings face while someone else is talking.
Right. Do you practice that in the mirror?
Well, the thing is, there's a lot of people at the table, and I don't get to talk a lot. In fact, sometimes I'll have AI, I'll give it the transcript of the show, and I'll say, give me a word count. I am almost always last on word count.
Oh, wow.
I am almost always at the bottom of the list in terms of total volume of words, which it's something I strive for because I love the phrase economy of words. Who can do the most with the least? And that's kind of what I'm thinking about. Like, I need to make my points as succinctly and as efficiently because I think they'll be more memorable that way.
Well, I also, at the risk of sounding like I'm just praising you, I think what's effective is when you just make them answer. Like, please answer my question. What's with Trump and Epstein? What proof do you have?
Right.
Well, you raise an interesting debating issue, which is I often hear people make extremely declarative statements. This is true. He is this. This happened. And in many cases, those declarative statements have no foundational evidence whatsoever. Like, there's nothing. It's just what they want. And it goes back to this whole topic of narrative that I brought up. There are people who are dedicated to narratives. And I've heard people imply, or worse, in the Epstein case, that Donald Trump, they know for a fact that Donald Trump has done something untoward, unethical, illegal, or nasty.
Right. Well, to me, those statements come from essentially reading Blue Sky all day, every day.
Yes.
Right.
So let me just comment on this because it's one thing that I have learned doing this for the last year plus. There are definitely more people than you know who marinate in Blue Anon all day long.
Yeah.
It is the only news that they read. They don't read articles. They don't watch interview segments. They don't ingest actual news and information. They marinate in blue anon on blue sky all day long. And then they come on the air and they start to say it. And it's so easily debunked and it's so easily shot down. But the look of shock and dismay on their face.
Yeah.
But to them, that's the news to them. And I mean, it really sort of bears discussion. They marinate in this garbage all day long. But to them, that garbage is the news.
Right.
And I'm just kind of shocked by the people that with the titles they have and the level of experience they have or supposedly have and the things they've done. That's the best you can do for information gathering, is to sit around and marinate in the fever swamps of blue sky all day. But you hear it in their commentary because they think that's what's happening. And I have a suspicion they know it's not true, but it just makes them feel good to believe that it's true. But you hear it on the air a lot, these people who marinate in this garbage all day long.
Right. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm going to put you on the spot now, and that is you must have seen Abby Phillip on the Joy Reid show and discussing how she prepares for her show with the conservatives. And she suggested that she has to bone up on all the conspiracy theories. And of course, anybody of us who are watching this, first of all, start with Joy Reid is the queen of conspiracy theories. But it's also that whole notion. Here we are discussing the Epstein conspiracy theory, the Russian collusion conspiracy theory, we can make a list of all the Trump conspiracy theories. So you kind of wish you could have popped into that conversation to say, excuse me, you people seem to be operating conspiracy theories you still have yet to prove.
Yeah, I did see that interview. And, for Joy Reid, we're still looking for those time-traveling computer hackers. That to me is still one of the greatest media stories of all time, when she claimed that people went back in time and hacked her blog and made all those terribly hateful comments. But we'll leave that for another day. A lot of conspiracy theories are espoused on the show. I don't think it's often by the conservatives, to be candid. I certainly don't dabble in conspiracy theories. I mean, the way I approach the job is, look, I think I have some journalistic responsibility to go on and tell the truth, ask questions that are grounded in facts, and bring up things that no one else is going to bring up, and even though they are factual parts of a story. We were debating, for instance, and we debate this a lot, the ICE raids that are going on around the country.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking about Charlotte, North Carolina the other night.
Yeah.
And, we were talking about the guy who, I have a real ID, they shouldn't be able to talk to me. And I just thought the way that whole story was framed and the way it was discussed, when we left out important information, like the guy wouldn't roll down his window, like if the cops come and ask you to roll down your window, you got to roll down your window. But especially on immigration right now, there's a lot of conspiracy theories and a lot of things that are said that simply aren't true, but they're coming out of that blue anon world, not conservative world, in my opinion. Look, I'll just say about Abby, I like Abby. I'm friends with Abby. I think we've got a good thing going. I think that show is an incredible show. It's the only show like it on cable. And I'm obviously we have different views on a lot of issues in the world, but I'm really pleased with what we're doing. And I don't, I'm stunned that I get to do it. I mean, I think it's a privilege to get to do it. And so I'm really grateful for CNN and for Abby for letting me be a part of it. I think it's made the network better. I think me being on that show, the debating format, the open airing of ideas, I think it's made the network better. And I think more people are consuming content from CNN than ever before, because people who don't watch the network are getting it in their social media feeds. So we're getting a lot of attention on a brand that was languishing, frankly, I think, with conservatives and Republicans and other people out there. So,
well, Scott, I mean, you can't.
My view is I don't really have anything to say about Abby's commentary other than to say I'm grateful for the chair, and I'm going to continue to do my level best to ask good questions, to have good debates, to tell the truth, to bring up things that I think other people aren't going to bring up, and to do it in an entertaining way. This doesn't have to be boring. We don't have to make the news boring. And I think most of the time that's what we're doing on that show.
Well, you can't say it, but I will. CNN should be dropping rose petals in front of you every time you walk into that studio, because you're one of the few reasons that anyone tunes into CNN. But let me.
Well, there's things that are put on the floor in front of me, but it's not rose petals.
Let me ask you. You like you said, you worked for George W. Bush. Leader McConnell. The Republicans kind of took a shellacking in the elections. I know they were blue states, but some downstream elections, local stuff, they took it on the chin too. Trump's Truth Social last night, I thought was awesome. It just laid out bullet point by bullet point everything that he's done, and he needs to continue to do that. A lot of which, though, were in the executive order space, the foreign policy space. If you were advising President Trump, Leader Thune, Speaker Johnson today, what would you advise them to do to attack first and foremost?
Well, from a policy perspective, I think this is an opportunity to attack on healthcare. I actually interviewed Senator Cassidy yesterday from Louisiana. He's got an idea on getting money directly into health savings accounts. There's some other plans and other ideas out there that I think are more free market in nature that would actually help people with healthcare. So, Democrats are forever saying, well, what's your plan? What's your plan? And of course, what they want you to say is that I'll replace your government plan with my government plan. But our answer to that ought to be, no, we don't want more government. We want less government and more free market. And so I think this is an opportunity to attack on healthcare because we've exposed Obamacare. Obamacare has failed.
Yeah.
Everybody now knows it. It's the Affordable Care Act. It's either affordable and you can't get any care. It was an act, but other than that, the other words are inoperable. And everybody now knows it. And so this is our chance to say, well, Democrats made a mess. Here's how we're going to clean it up in the short and long term. Number two, I do think they need to consider another reconciliation plan, reconciliation bill, and maybe look at more targeted tax relief. And I think they also need to look at anything they can do on the working class front to just try to take the government boot off the throat of the people who get up and go to work every day. I think reconciliation is probably the best way to do it because it's obvious that, the Democrats are willing to shut down the government for an election. You think they're going to go along with regular order in the Senate? I really don't. Yeah. So number three, and my final PR advice is, we have the greatest salesman in the country as the president.
Yeah, no kidding.
And he's done a lot. And a lot of it is terrific. We need to get into sales mode. And he needs to go remind the country not just what we've done, but what he inherited and what they will do. He is great at drawing bright lines. And we cannot let them off the hook on affordability. You're going to take criticism on affordability or cost of living from the people who just put prices to the moon and lied to your face about it.
Right.
We have to get back into sales mode. Fortunately, we have a great salesman as the president, and if they do that, I think you're going to see the public opinion tide turn on this. But, the truth is he has spent a huge amount of his time doing what an American president can do, which is make the world a better place. And I'm glad that he's done that. He's had one of the most monumental foreign policy records of any modern president. But for the political season to come, we need the salesman in chief. And I think he's going to do it.
Yeah, I found it wild a couple weeks ago when the Washington Post editorial page declared that the open secret in Washington was that the Affordable Care Act was never really affordable at all. And you were in the Obamacare wars. Imagine taking that editorial and going back in time at 15 years and waving that in front of the Democrats, that the Washington Post itself would declare that this thing was a bust. I totally agree with you on the healthcare stuff. And look, there's a dozen or so plans floating around Washington. Just pick one and go.
Right? Or pick several and go. I think what I'm learning from different people is that you might be able to do several things. There are a lot of people with ideas, and it may be that numerous ideas are needed here, but whatever it is, just do it. Just get on it and show the American people that, okay, well, the Democrats broke something else. We'll show up and fix it. That's a pretty good policy and a pretty good political vector for us. So
totally agree.
I think they're going to do that. But that's top of the list right now because look, the debate exposed just how corrupt and broken this system is. I'll tell you one other thing. I think there's more welfare reform to do. I think the Medicaid reform they did in the Big Beautiful Bill was needed. Mm-hmm. This SNAP benefit debate, it also exposed 43 million people on SNAP benefits. I think a lot of folks went, wait a minute.
Okay.
And so there may be more welfare reform to do here as well. What essentially we're doing is we're telling working class Americans right now, you got to get up and go to work every day, and you got to pay your own taxes, and you got to put food on your own table, and we're going to make you also responsible for 43 million others. We just exposed just what a burden it is to be a working class person in America.
Right.
With the welfare state that we have put on top of them to crush them. And so I think there may be more to do on that front as well.
Our special guest has been Scott Jennings, Republican commentator on CNN and author of the new book, you can run to Amazon, A Revolution of Common Sense, How Donald Trump Stormed Washington and Fought for Western Civilization. Thanks again for your time, Scott.
Thanks, Scott. Appreciate it, buddy.
Hey, thanks, guys. I love you guys and appreciate everything you do. Thank you.
Thank you.
So for everything you need to know about media bias, you got to come to NewsBusters once, twice, 24 times a day. Thanks for listening and watching.